when I set up my website, I created it with a Calendly link, like schedule a call with me. I went through so much planning for the motherfucking thing. And maybe this is a measure of my commitment to getting a website that actually works well, but no one's ever used it ever in the history of the website being up. Now I haven't really given a shit, and I haven't done any. Like one of the things my web guy said is one of the hardest things to do is to optimize a funnel and to get it so that people have a follow through. Yeah. And I just don't care enough. So
me, so what I do is I share my calendar with someone. I'm like, if you want to book some time with me, here's a link to my calendar, pick whatever you want.
Yeah.
Whatever's available that fits for you, and that's it. That's my
that's certainly easy. I haven't given people access to I don't really like that. Giving people full access to my calendar. Like I would rather look at my calendar and kind of look at them and go, this is a good time. Like because I know my energy and where I'm going to be.
Yeah.
I guess if I had thousands of people trying to book calls, I couldn't do that. I'd have to.
The reason why I like doing it the way I do it is because I don't like the process of going back and forth.
Yeah.
So if you know what time you want to, like, your schedule, now mine, book whatever you want.
Yeah, no, I get that. I like that too. Yeah, I like that too.
It works for me. And
yeah, it's cool.
And if I'm not in the right energy for somebody, I'll move them.
Right.
It's like this week for me has been incredibly hectic, and I ran out of steam on a couple of occasions, and I'm like, we need to reschedule. I just don't have. I won't be worth your time. So
did they? Is your house back on the market?
Yeah, and it's sold again.
Nice. Let's see how many times you can sell it.
Yeah.
Without actually it changing hands.
Yeah, so we're just waiting on, I think they have an inspection on Monday, and then we should be after that knowing where we're at. But our agent, it's causing like hours of angry discussion for my wife and I. Not angry with each other, just angry about the situation we've got ourselves in, because the agent is terrible. Terrible.
That's. How did you connect with this agent? How did you happen to pick this agent?
Wife of a friend. Don't ever do that. If anyone ever listens to this, don't ever do that.
What would you have done? What would you do differently next time? Like if you were going to sell your house again, like how would you go about finding a realtor?
Find the very best realtor you can find.
But how would you do that? Like, I mean, how do you determine who's the best realtor?
I guess look at stats and find out like who's really out there doing,
right,
actually doing it as a real business.
Right.
Yeah. Bad move. I think we have a conditional sale. She's like, I don't really love this offer. They're first-time home buyers. They've got, they don't have a big down payment, although they're pre-qualified, blah, blah, blah. So we're okay. So we come to terms with them on a price, and the conditions, which is just inspection. And so then she calls us the next day and says, okay, well, I'm going to take put the house on pending unless you don't want to. And we're like, why would you do that? Leave it active on the listing and let's keep showing it.
Right.
Until this thing is done, we can take as many offers as we want.
Absolutely. And that only strengthens your position.
She's like, oh, well, I don't know. People don't want to come and see a conditionally sold house. I'm like, well, then don't tell them. she says, well, I have to tell
You'd
them.
be a better realtor at this point than she is.
She's like, well, I have to tell them. And I'm like, you don't have to volunteer the information. No. I'm like, well, if they ask, tell them it's conditionally sold, but it's not a very strong buyer. She goes, oh, well, is that what you want to do? I'm like, oh my God, woman, I'm going to fucking jump off a bridge. Oh. So we've got like showings lined up and she wanted to cancel them all. I'm like, well, what happens on Monday if they're like, no?
They back out. Do you guys do escrow in Canada?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even know what escrow was when I moved out to California. In Maryland, they didn't do that. I don't think. Maybe they did. Maybe I wasn't old enough to know what it was. I don't know.
I think all real estate has an escrow period.
It doesn't make sense. I don't think they called it that. I think they had a period, but they didn't. It wasn't called escrow.
Yeah. Anyway, so hopefully it will be over soon because I said this to Crystal. I said, we bought that house 10 years ago. We've worked our ass off to pay it off. And it's one of our bigger, personal investments. And now we're putting it and trusting in the hands of someone who is a fucking complete idiot. And she's the one that's out there negotiating on our behalf for our life savings. If you,
right.
For a lot of people it is, right? And I'm just like, what are we doing? We're all worried about upsetting her feelings. Come on now.
Right.
This is our life.
Right.
And she has no concept of what she's doing.
Do you think okay, so if you think of the big picture, do you think how much of a difference do you think it will make actually? Like how can you is the difference going to be $100,000? Could it be that big? Like how big of a difference is it?
It's time. Like, so right now we're in a market, Andy, where houses are selling in, 2-3 weeks.
Are there bidding wars? Are they people?
A lot
fighting?
of times with multiple offers and all this stuff going on.
Right.
We've been on the market for 61 days.
Did you price it too high, or what? Why do you think so long?
It's the only drawback about our house is we are on a bit of a busy street, but we're in a great neighborhood. It's a solid house. It's got recent updates. It's completely automated. It's got watering, built into the lawns. It's got air conditioning. It's got all the stuff.
Yep.
But we're on a busy road, and it's not for everybody, and that's okay, right? But her way of doing this is, okay, well, we're friends, and I'll list your house for you, and then that's all she does. She lists the house,
right?
And then she sits back and waits for someone else to sell it. And she doesn't know how to create demand, and she doesn't know how to negotiate with people.
So it's really more the level of there's an inner upset I hear in you around why should she be making whatever percent what do they make in Canada?
7% on the first 100 and 3% on the remainder.
Yeah, why should she be making that kind of commission on your house when she's done nothing?
Well, that's typical of what I think real estate is all about, but it's the inability to her number one priority is covering her own ass all the time. And we're advising her. That's the thing that really irks me.
But you chose her.
Well, let me be very clear. I did not choose her. My wife.
I should say you, the collective you.
My wife chose her because she was worried about upsetting
Right.
our friend who is married to her.
Right.
I was not, I would have called him and said, hey man, we're selling the house and we're not using your wife, just so you know. And he would have gone, oh, that's cool.
Right. Right.
Right?
She might not have done that. The wife might not have been, hey, that's cool, but okay. She would have figured it out or gotten over it.
Yeah. The last time, so we used her to buy the house. And the last thing I remember was my wife saying, I will never use her to do anything ever again.
Wow. Wow.
So when it came time to choose this again, I said, remember, the last thing you said was, I will never use her again.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots has changed. And I'm like, okay, well, remember that. So the other day we're having some time together and she says, I'm sorry. I'm like, well, you don't have to be sorry. I understand why, but you don't have to be sorry.
I mean, this is in the category of choose your battles and
100%.
Be a good husband. And I think sometimes you've got to just you just got to take one for the team and not let it get to you too badly, because it's going to get to you some. I would be going through the same shit. I know I would.
Crystal then said, she's really not very good at what she does, is she? And I'm like, she's fucking terrible. Anyway, we're in it.
It's an interesting dilemma, though. It's an interesting dilemma with any business and friendships and deciding who to go to or who you trust. Like I was the president of a referral network here in LA. There's a national organization called the Tip, and actually it's probably, I don't know if it's in Canada, maybe it's global, but they have these little chapters all over the place. And a chapter will start with, say, 10 people who are all independent business owners who all represent a different business category. So you got a lawyer and you got a dentist and you've got a personal trainer and you've got a, fucking, I don't know, an accountant.
Yeah.
And they have a meeting every week. And the job of each one of the people is to keep in mind those people that are in the group and to look out for referrals for those people.
Great.
And as the group gets bigger, the group I ran was we had somewhere between 15 and 60 members. And every week you show up for meetings and you do a 30-second commercial on yourself. Everybody gets a chance. You go through the room, and so you get a chance to do public speaking. It's good training. But there was always this weird question around, do you refer someone to someone that's in the group just because they're in the group? Or do you refer someone to them because they're the best at what they do? Because there's a difference. Some people got in the group and, hey, they seem like good people, but do they really fucking know what the hell they're doing? Are they the best realtor? Are they the best stockbroker? Are they the best, massage therapist? We had a massage therapist in the group. Oh my God. She was a nightmare. I got one massage from her and I'm like, never again. Never. I mean, there was more oil all over me than, I felt like a freaking slippery fish.
Maybe she was a different kind of therapist.
Yeah, but you didn't want her to be. So there was always this ethical, I don't know if it's an ethical dilemma, moral dilemma, loyalty dilemma. I wouldn't send to somebody I care about. I would not send that massage therapist, even if she's in my group. Like no way, because it reflects on me. And so the same thing goes, I think, with friendship. Like, do you go to a dentist just because your next door neighbor said that they were a great dentist? Like, a lot of people do. That's what they do. That's their research.
Yeah. I would say that being a friend is not a good reason to choose someone for whatever it is they do.
Right.
I would say it's probably a good reason not to. if you really, if you
Yeah.
value the friendship.
Unless you know that they're the best at what they do and they can differentiate business from friendship,
Which
and
is not very often.
not very often. Yep,
Yeah.
not very often.
Like I am, I'll give myself this pat on the back. I'm very good at business and friend. Very good at it. And there's like a massive dividing line between the two.
Yeah.
And everyone knows that when, you know, when I used to own the gym, and I had a lot of friends that went there, lots. And probably the same as what you had when you had your gym.
Yeah.
And they knew the minute they walked across that threshold, it wasn't Ken, my friend. It was Ken, my coach.
Yeah, I did not have that. I did not have friends from other walks of life. There were a few.
Yeah.
And the ones that I let come in were either I let come in at a free level or at a really reduced rate or whatever. And that I was never able to really hold that line between, okay, you're no longer my friend, I'm your coach. And because for whatever reason, I just wasn't, it wasn't good.
Anyone that would ever have a problem with it, I'd always take aside and say, when you're here, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And if you can't handle that, that's okay. Then don't come here. We'll still be friends outside of here.
I've had to do that on social media. I had
Yeah.
two buddies from high school. They were my best friends. I mean, they're still like, I still consider them some of my best friends.
Mm.
And you know, I'd put something up on Facebook, I'd put a video up, or I'd something of me talking about something, or this was a few years ago. And you know, they would just start heckling, which in high school and even after high school, that's kind of what we did. We give each other shit. We know each other in a certain way. And so any one of us trying to break out of the way that we were from back then caused the other ones to be like, oh, who the fuck does he think he is? You know, in a fun, playful way. But it was not fun and playful when that's a place that people in the world are looking to me as this other person. And
Right.
so I called both of them up, and I'm like, guys, you know, look, this is a place that I'm posting as a person, but also as a professional. And, you know, I'm fine with heckling. If you want to heckle me, send me a direct message. I'm good with, I'm fine with it. You know, let's do a little private chat and you can heckle the fuck out of me. I'll heckle the fuck out of you right back, but please don't do it as a public comment on my Facebook, because nobody even understands it. They don't even, you sound like an asshole. And then when I don't respond, people are like, Andy, why don't you just kick them off? Why don't you just unfriend them? You know, they don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I've had to do that on social media.
Yeah. I always said this, you know, look, I get you as a client an hour, you know, 3 or 4 times a week. We have all the rest of the time to be friends.
Right.
You know, like if you can't handle that, then let's just be friends. We'll just take all the time to do that.
Yeah. Right.
You know, but when you're here, I'm your coach, and I'm a 100% no bullshit coach.
Yeah.
Like if you're coming here to have fun and yuck it up, this isn't it.
It's easier for me to meet someone as a business owner and then become friends versus being friends first and then bring on business. It's weird. Like that flow is
right, because the obligatory feeling comes into play. Like we're friends.
Yeah, right.
You know,
right.
you should come to my restaurant.
Yeah.
We're friends. I should be your dentist.
Or we're friends, and so if I do come to your restaurant, I should get a big discount. Or, you know, those
Right.
things. Yeah.
And for me, that is the absolute opposite of what it should be.
Right.
If I'm your friend and I'm coming to your restaurant, I'm ordering everything. I'm going to tip like a motherfucker.
Right.
Like I'm going to make everyone in the restaurant feel fantastic.
Right.
That's what a friend does when I come to your business.
Yeah, right.
So
You're a better friend than most of my friends.
well, I don't know. It just seems like what it should be.
Yeah, it seems like what it should be to me too.
And like, if you do a great job, I want you to know it. And if you do a shitty job, I also want you to know that.
Yeah, right. Of course.
I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm going to be the guy that comes and says, "Hey, man, like
this
one
was
of the
fucked
things
up.
you should have a look at is X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
Happy to help, or maybe this is the help right here, but not being an ass about it. But you need to make some improvements here.
yeah,
Most customers won't tell you this, and they won't come back.
right,
So
right.
I'm trying to help. So
Yeah.
interesting. What else is going on, Andrew?
Let's see. Dash playing ultimate frisbee yesterday at school, collided head to head with another kid and collapsed for like 3 seconds, unconscious. Enough to send his mother into a complete tailspin. And she took him to the doctor. They said if he's symptom free, he was symptom free, and so he was symptom free this morning. And they said if he's symptom free in the morning, there's no, he got his bell rung and
it's okay.
No big deal. Yeah. I called a buddy of mine who is a doctor. He's an anesthesiologist. He and I were adventure buddies. He went to UCLA Medical School and used to live here in town. And we became fast friends. He was an athlete. He was a rock climber and a not jujitsu. I don't remember what kind of martial art, but just he's the kind of guy that anything he does, he's fucking fantastic at. He's smart. He's athletic. He's flexible. He can run like the wind. He wasn't a good weightlifter. Like that's not his thing. But rock climbing and then so we got into kayaking, and that's where I started my whitewater kayaking. There were 4 of us that would go on these adventures. They would adventure more than I would actually, and that's when I kayaked off a 30-foot waterfall, and I did these class 5 runs down the Sierras, and I did all this fucking crazy shit stuff that when I first started, I mean, they just stuck me in a river in a class 4 and said, okay, let's go. I swam. I don't know if you know much about whitewater kayaking, but I swam out of that boat more times. I was miserable, like a drowned rat. And afraid. It affected me for the duration of the time that I was whitewater kayaking, because I never got over the fear that when I buckled myself in, and if I flipped over, that I wasn't going to make it back up. Like that was the running thought in my head. And no matter how good I got at my role, because the underlying thought was you're not going to make it up, half the time I didn't make it up. There was a time on the Kauai, which is a river north of the Kern. The Kern is the southernmost river in the Sierras, and then the Kauai is kind of the next one up, at least the one that we did. And there's a big bend there were 2 really fucking traumatic things that occurred on the Kauai. This one I'm thinking of right now was the whole river turns right, and it goes through a whole series of drops. And really what you learn in kayaking as you get better is it's not really about the drops. The drops aren't that big a deal. It's the prep. It's what you do right before the drop, and how the angle that your boat is, and the speed that you're going, and the direction of your bow, and what eddy you can pop into, because you can break a class 5 rapid up into a bunch of little parts. And we got out to scout the rapid. It was, for me at the time, it was big. There were these big boulders that were jutting up out of the water, and there were these little pour overs you had to go through. Probably 4 foot pour overs, not huge, 4 or 5 foot. But they sounded dramatic. There's a hearing thing. There's a sight thing. When you see the foam coming up, it's very intimidating. It's the scariest thing. It's the scariest sport and the most fear-inducing sport that I've ever been a part of, and yet I couldn't stop doing it. And right before I got to this is a pattern of mine. Right before I got to this first pour over, because in the story in my head is I flip upside down and I can't get back up. I flipped upside down. I don't even know how. I flipped upside down and I'm making my attempts at my rolls. I'm setting up and no. And because if you're desperate to get air and you pull your head up first, it fucks the complete mechanics up. You can't, because your center of gravity is at your hips. If your hips aren't the first thing that comes up, you'll never make it up. You're gasping for air and it just pulls you right back down. And so I don't know, I did 3 of those and I'm being drugged toward this thing. And all of a sudden I remember just feeling boom on the top of my head. Just like I had hit the largest rock and the whole river just pushed me into it. And then I felt myself falling over this drop upside down. And I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. And that doesn't really end it. When you pull out of your boat, it's you're a floating rat in a dangerous, river, and you've got no protection of a boat, and you don't want to lose your boat. You don't want to lose your paddle. So, you've got to deal with all that shit. And I'm starting to sweat just thinking about it.
I have an unhealthy fear of heights. And unhealthy meaning that when I'm faced with a height, my first reaction is to jump.
What?
Yeah. So I want my feet to meet where my eyes are.
Okay.
So if I'm looking down, my initial reaction is get your feet to where your eyes are.
What the fuck's wrong with you?
And then I get vertigo. Right?
Jump? You mean after you jump, you get vertigo?
No, I don't jump.
Oh, you don't jump?
No, because it's like hundreds of feet.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
So I get vertigo.
Right.
And then I fall over.
Hopefully backwards.
Most times.
Have you ever fallen over forwards?
No.
Okay, good. Good.
So they call me the fainting goat because we like to ride motorcycles in the mountains here. So I remember one of the first times I went with my wife and her dad, and they took me up this trail, and it kind of comes up over a crest, and then it turns right and goes, continues up. But at that turn is a 3,000-foot drop into the canyon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm riding along, not expecting that.
It's a sharp left turn or a sharp right turn?
Sharp right turn. And
you have a cliff on your right? You have a wall on your right?
Oh, or you have a cliff on your left.
Cliff down, but do you have a wall on your right?
It's not a wall. It's kind of
okay.
It's doable for sure.
Yeah.
So I get, I'm riding along, not expecting anything. Everything's great. And all of a sudden the world drops out from underneath me.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, my whole world goes upside down. And next thing you know, I'm laying on the ground. And I can't pick my bike up because I'm picking it up to the left, which sends me, I'm thinking in my head, over the edge.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm like dragging this dirt bike, a couple 100 pounds, along, and they're like, what are you doing? We just pick it up. I'm like, no, I can't. And it's like, it's completely insane.
Right.
So the other time was I was traveling for business, and we were moving into a new office, and my team had organized this new office space and so on, and I didn't really know much about it. And I got back into town, and they said, oh, we're excited to show you the new office. We got it all set up. I get there, it's on the 69th floor of an office tower overlooking Lake Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
And they've put me in the corner office with windows on two sides.
Uh-huh.
And they've given me a desk that's made of glass.
Oh shit. The only thing that could be worse would be if the floor was glass and you could see all the way down.
So I open the door and I walk into my office. They're all excited, and I'm like, "Give this office to somebody else."
Wow.
Like, I walk in and I'm like, "Whoa!" Immediately fall over, and like, give this to accounting or something. Like, put me in the middle where I don't see anything.
Give me the janitor's closet.
Oh my
You're
god.
good with that.
Yeah. So here's the craziest part. I am in complete calmness if I know I'm jumping. So like a bungee jump or anything like that, or jumping off a high cliff into water.
Yeah.
Complete calmness.
So you have no problem approaching the edge of a cliff that you know you're going to jump off of.
No problem.
Do you have tremendous fear in jumping?
No.
See, that you and I are opposite that way. I have no problem approaching the edge of a cliff, but when I get within about a foot, I have massive panic, massive anxiety. When I did this bungee jumping trip, the only time I've ever bungee jumped, I bought 6 jumps, and it was a place called the Bridge to Nowhere here in LA. And it's this big bridge they built back in probably like the Tennessee Valley Authority, back in the 40s, 30s. And it literally goes to nowhere. It's in the middle of nowhere and it goes to nowhere. And it's this big arched bridge, and it's 150-foot drop down to like a stream.
Yep.
And I was smoking and joking. I was right at the edge. I was looking over the edge. I'm like, this is great. I'm laughing with other people as they go do it. They're having a good time. And I get up to go, and there's this primal fear that very different. I didn't have any of this when I was skydove, like skydiving. No fear at all. Like it felt to me, skydiving felt to me so unreal. I was so high. I couldn't really process that this is supposed to be scary. Like it didn't even occur to me. This was, I am about to die, and don't do this. In no stretch of the imagination, do not do this, no matter how tight the bungee cord was on me or whatever. And I wasn't in terror, but it was really, really scary each time. And I did all 6 of them, thinking
never got better,
thinking it would get better, and it never got better. I want to say it would. Like I would go again. Like if my son wanted to go on a trip or something, and we wanted, I would go. I would do it. Yeah. We've done zip lines. We've done, I've climbed all kinds of shit. I've done all kinds of height stuff, and it was just bungee jumping. It was weird.
I used to live in a town called Edmonton, and they have this big, huge mall there, and one of the things they have is a bungee jump. It's 175 feet.
Wow! In the mall?
In a mall, yeah. And so we were in like the first 20 people to go off when they opened up, and I was like, I'm going to give it a try because I'm scared of heights and I want to conquer my fear. And I had anticipated being afraid. And you've got to go up an elevator and then get onto a catwalk, and the catwalk goes way up into the rafters of this glassed-in dome. And I'm walking on there. Normally I would be like hanging on both sides, trying not to fall over. I'm like calm as a cucumber. I just like, this isn't making any sense. And I was just so much in the actual moment that it just never flustered me. And that I got hooked up and stood at the edge, and the guy's like, "You ready to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, anytime you're ready, I'm good." And he's like, "No, he goes, this is fun, you can have fun doing this." I'm like, "Sure, I'm good." It was like, I think I pulled myself out of body.
Isn't it interesting how much our brains can dictate our experience? Like it is that is the experience, is what your brain's telling you.
Yeah. And it goes to like painful events too, like doing something like Karen, like 150 wall balls.
Mhm.
I know how painful that is, and I can remove myself from the situation
Right. And just keep going.
go like it's black and go.
Right. Yeah, I used to tell athletes like you that, you know, I would say you have no governor, or you have the ability to turn off your governor.
Right.
And
It's
that
not
I
a
said,
good thing.
my job as a coach mostly is to protect you from you. Because you're gonna fuck yourself up, you're gonna end up in the hospital or with your rhabdo or something.
Yeah.
I didn't have that. I have too much in me that says this is stupid. Stop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I couldn't go hard, and I did give myself probably half rhabdo,
Yeah.
multiple times. But there's a part of me that's always felt like there's a part of me holding back. Probably the only exception, I remember when I qualified for the CrossFit Games, there was a regional qualifier, and the workout was an 800-meter run and then 30 overhead squats with 95, it was light, 95 pounds, 3 times. 800-meter run, 30 overhead squats, 800-meter run, 30 overhead squats. And, you know, there was I don't know, there were 60 of us, 50 or 60 of us. And I was good at overhead squats as long as the weight wasn't too heavy. Like 95 pounds was a good, you know, I think Nicole is the CrossFit workout that.
Yep. I remember that.
And I had a really good time with that. So first 2 rounds, I didn't put the bar down. It just boom. And I was thinking on the run, on the 3rd run, and I was in, at that point, I was probably in like 5th place or 4th place. I was doing, because everybody else was dropping the bar. And
Right.
I was on the run and I was thinking, okay, am I going to be able to hold this bar up? What do I do? Is it better to put it down after 10 and take some rest? And the crowd noise and the, you know, like the spirit kind of got a hold of me, and I just went. And I remember getting to like 20 and everything's shaking, you know, and I don't remember now if I brought it down behind my neck. I might have. Although I don't know. I won that event. I won it. I came from behind and
What year was that, Andy?
2000.
10, 11?
No, 2009. It was a year before they went to Carson.
Okay.
So we were still up in Aromas, and this was down in Orange County, this qualifier. I remember Brian Chantosh. I was up against, it was the first time I'd met Brian. He's a former Marine and just tough as nails. Like not a person that I would typically want to compete against, because I feel like I'm going to get my ass handed to me. And I beat him in that workout. He didn't qualify. I did. It's fucking crazy. So, but yeah, no, it's interesting. There's a guy that wrote a book that I used to have come speak at the gym. His name is Matt Fitzgerald, and the first book I think I read by him that I was just super intrigued by was called Brain Training for Runners. And it introduced me to this idea of the central governor theory, which is, you know, your brain has, if it explains, there's a governor in your brain, basically, is what the central governor theory says. And it never allows you to go beyond what would really kill you or hurt you. You know, like your muscles probably have the ability to break your bones, but your central governor won't let you access that. And the way they would explain that exists is like, how do you explain if you're in a 5K and you're going along and you're thinking you're bonking or you're out of energy or whatever, and you have no more energy, but you're within say a quarter of a mile of the finish line and you start to speed up, if you were truly bonking and you truly had no more energy, you couldn't. It'd be physically impossible for you to speed up. And yet people do all the time. All the time that happens.
Right.
And there's no other way. Well, that's part of the explanation of, like, there's reserve always that you don't know how to access.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of that sort of mental training that he prescribed in the book. It was great. It's a great book.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never read up or done anything other than, just experiencing what I have been able to do to myself in as far as like extraordinary effort type stuff goes. Yeah, I'm a huge believer in the power of mental. It's your body is just along for the ride.
Right. Right.
If you can get to that place. Right.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a famous triathlon battle that happened at Ironman. I think it was in like 1989. Or Matt Fitzgerald wrote a book about it that I don't know if it's fully accurate, but it was between Mark Allen and Dave Scott, I think. And to this day, no one has beaten the times that they set on the course. Because the two of them battling through the thing pushed each other to this level that I don't think anyone's ever beat it. I think it was from 1989. Like,
yeah,
you'd think.
Well, from your time in military, like, they train you to turn it off and just follow, right?
Yep.
I would think prisoners of war and people who've gone through torture, like, there's a mental part of that just says, don't be here for this part.
Right. Right.
You just leave your body there and let it endure.
Because you are not your body.
Right. Right.
And I mean, that's a big piece of consciousness training and Zen training, and you are not your body, and that's hard to grasp.
Yeah, I grew up in two pretty arduous endurance sports and one very strategic rough and tumble sport, and that is the two endurance were speed skating and cycling. Mm-hmm. Horrible things to endure and do to yourself. And then hockey, where you got to be,
have they changed the rules of hockey? I saw a game the other day, a match the other day that opened up with 3 fights on the ice, literally at the same time, like in the first 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
And the refs were letting it happen. Like, is that? I thought they kind of changed things to.
No, it's not as prevalent as it used to be. Like, you don't set your team up with enforcers and all that anymore. And the game has gotten a lot faster, but fighting is still a big part of it. And so refs don't so much let it happen as they're just looking for opportunity not to get hit when they go to break it up.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But I remember early on when I was like 16 years old, being on a bicycle, finding ways to get the pain to stop without stopping.
Where was the pain when you had the pain?
Mostly legs.
You actually feel the not lungs, not your breathing, not your air.
The intense burning in my legs. My feet numb. I couldn't feel what I was doing. Yeah, so I would do all sorts of things. I would start telling jokes. heckling people because I didn't want
Or out loud.
out loud. I didn't want anyone to know how much pain I was in.
That's so funny. I have a story about that too.
And so one who's in front of me pulling, like they're pulling us forward, right? And I would heckle that guy. Like, is that all you got? Or, you know, like
Right.
whatever the thing was. And every time anyone would ever look back at me, I'd have this big shit eating grin or smile or laughing or something, because they'd all think I was crazy. And I was in so much pain, I was just trying to find ways to not be there for it. And so I would imagine myself in a much happier place.
Yeah, right.
And then I would try to put that forward so other people would think, this is horrible. Like, why is this guy so happy?
Right.
Yeah.
So funny. I used the same strategy, but not when I was in pain. It was when I was nervous.
Oh.
So like right before the start of a race, almost every adventure race that I can think of, especially the short ones, the ones that were only like 3 or 4 hours. I would be the guy at the start line that I would be joking. I'd be laughing. I'd be cracking jokes. I'd be, heckling people. I would go run to the bathroom with, 1 minute to start. Shit, I got to go to the bathroom. Run out, go to my teammates, would drive my teammates crazy. But that was my way of letting go of the energy that was like pulsing through me, and not, like one of my big problems used to be starting too fast.
Yeah.
So that would help, because it would help let go of some of that steam and energy.
That was your way of starting on your own terms.
Yeah.
Controlling the start.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, I'll see you on Sunday.
Could never predicted that we would talk about this today, but yeah, that's the way something about nothing goes.
It's something about nothing.
Yeah, it's so weird how this stuff just so weird. I love it. It's great. Yeah.
No expectation. It just happens.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
And I wonder at what point do we take some of what we're doing, whatever that is, and use it as a way of operating outside of our environment.
Well, I've been using the idea that showing up fully without knowing without trying to think about what to expect is coming or how to do what's coming as a practice in my coaching with my clients. And it's what I've found is I am incredibly good at knowing what to do in spite of thinking in advance. I don't know what to do.
Right. Well, it's because when you think in advance, you're predicting the future.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you've got this plan, and then you get kicked in the nuts, and you're like, "Huh, that wasn't the plan."
Yeah.
Now what?
I heard it. I was listening to a YouTube video from Ed Milet podcast where he was talking with a guy who had a near-death experience, and he was waiting to get on the train in England, and he was wearing this big sheepskin coat, and the door closed, and the coat got stuck in the door. And I mean, I don't know. It doesn't sound to me. I mean, I've been in a lot of subways and stuff. It always seems to me like, oh, I could always pull it out, but he couldn't fucking get it out. Like, I don't know. He screamed, he yelled, and the engine had been revving already on the train, and the train was late behind schedule. And the train took off. He said he's just remember looking into the eyes of the woman that he had just said goodbye to. She was looking at him terrified. He was looking at her terrified. And, the same thing that everybody says, time slowed down. He thought, okay, I'm going to die. And he got sucked down between the train and the platform. Obviously it was bigger than that, so it must have been big enough for him to get sucked down in. that pulled him out of the door. But then you got to deal with the fact that you're under the train.
Fuck.
He said he remembered James Bond movies, and he goes, what would James Bond do? And he's like, well, James Bond would just lay flat and relax. Like, don't get nervous, just relax. And that's what he did. And I think his arm got severed, and he had some serious shit. And that's not really the point of me telling the story, because he had the NDE and he had the angels, and not angels, but just people that were deciding what to do with him, basically. Yeah. And they sent him back to Earth. And but he said that he could never have predicted that he'd be able to act so calmly, without nervousness, without tension. Like, he thinks that's what saved his life. He didn't panic, and he could never have pre-planned. He could never have trained for it. He could never have, this is not a guy who's been training for stuff like this. This is not like a paramilitary dude. This is like, this guy is like the most normal looking, soft-spoken, like, and it just, why was I talking about this? How did we get here? We were talking about mental mind stuff.
Yeah.
Being in the moment. He was just he was fully immersed in the moment. And that's why time slowed down. And that's why, but he said he couldn't ever have predicted, how that was going to go. Because it really looked like this was it. There's no way.
Yeah, I think what you were saying was that you're starting to use something about nothing as a way of being in the moment for your clients.
Yeah.
And not having a prescribed plan, because
trusting.
You don't know what happened to them during the week that you haven't seen them.
Right.
And so they're going to show up with something, and you're like, you can't prescribe what's about to happen. You're just there. You're supposed to be the guide.
Yeah.
So you just show up and be the guide.
There's a level of trusting myself. I was going to say trusting yourself, but trusting myself, and that I know. I do know.
But you do.
I don't know what it is, but I know that I'm going to figure it out in that moment, and
chances are you've probably experienced something much like what they're about to explain.
Right.
And you may not know it, but you're going to call upon it, and it's going to be there. Yeah. And then you're going to, if you're anything like me, you're going to have this bit of moment of out-of-body experience where you look down upon the conversation and go, how in the fuck did you know that?
Totally. Yes. Totally.
Happens to me all the time.
Yeah, I've had that happen quite a lot. Yeah.
It's great.
I've had that happen when I do some of my, I've been doing these like 5-minute Facebook Live, on certain topics. And sometimes I go into the topic thinking I've really organized my thoughts and I know what I'm going to say. And then I don't say it. But I say other really profound shit.
Yeah.
And then there are other times that I follow the script, and that's good too. So it's kind of fun to do it both ways, but it's all, for me, it's all about establishing trust, inner trust.
Yeah. But if you look back on all of the hours and all of the days and all of the minutes that you've been on Earth experiencing whatever you've experienced, the chances are you have knowledge to share about something that someone else just experienced that you experienced years ago.
Yep.
But even though you've long since forgotten what it was.
Yep.
And, as long as you're willing to be open and authentic and have a willingness to share, it'll come out when you least expect it.
Right.
I know that I've come off of calls with clients and come upstairs to, like normal, and my wife go, how are your calls? And I'm like, looking amazing. I learned something about myself today that I've long since forgotten.
Right.
And, then I get a chance to tell her about it. She goes, oh, I didn't know you did that. And I'm like, oh, I forgot.
Right. Right.
yeah, it's cool. It's pretty cool,
It is pretty cool.
you know. And you know, years ago I stopped having a plan for stuff. Like I have
Mhm.
a plan, but I don't have a like do this, then this. Like I show up for calls completely unknowing. I'm like,
Mhm.
no idea what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And some days it's, you know, we have a great productive session, and other days it's still very productive, but you know, the other person ends up in tears, and there's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
wow. And but you know, I've had people like leave halfway through because they can't deal with the fact that they've gotten so emotional. And then I get a message afterwards like, that was the best thing ever. I'm like,
Right.
all right,
Yeah.
great. But if I had a plan for that not to happen,
Yeah. You wouldn't have planned that. You would never have planned that. Right. Right.
right? So like, I got to be comfortable with whatever happens.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I used to, but I won't say his name, who is a mentor to many business owners, and he is incapable of emotion. And when someone else gets emotional, he completely shuts down, doesn't know what to do.
Hmm.
And I always thought like that's a massive limitation to your ability to be a great
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah. That's trouble.
I've cried many times on calls with
Yeah.
clients. I often in the early days I will tell this my experience with cancer over my life, and you know, it almost always gets me,
Yeah.
right? Because I actually know the value of sharing that story for others,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that gets me. It's not my personal experience that gets me because I've long since dealt with that, but sharing that with others and seeing their like, what? You know, that's
Yeah. But you reinforce the channel to your own heart, I think, when you retell the story. And that's important because it keeps it open.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think.
It's beautiful. Dude,
Well,
I have to
something
go.
about nothing is 2 minutes over time.
I was just gonna say I gotta go. I got a 10 o'clock thing.
All right,
So,
buddy. I'll see you. Well,
see you
you're on
Sunday.
time because you're on time. You still got 3 minutes
What do you mean?
because you're always
Oh, yeah.
5 minutes late.
Right. Exactly. I'm good.
I'll see you Sunday.
See you Sunday.
All right, bud.
I
Love
do.
you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Love you too.